In part 2 today, we dive into 5 essential inner resources that build lasting fulfillment, and which most people struggle with today. Dr. Celeste Birkhofer reveals what really drives a meaningful life and why self-compassion might be your missing foundation for joy, even when managing that family stress. If you've ever felt torn between caring for others and caring for yourself, you won't want to miss this. Welcome to Fulfillment Therapy. I'm Kendra Nielsen, wife, mom, and licensed therapist. Do you ever feel like you're doing everything right, but you're still exhausted and empty? Did you think life, marriage, and parenting would be simpler and more rewarding? Sometimes you just want to crawl back into bed and lose yourself in screen time and chocolate, rather than face that personal or family stress. You are not alone. This podcast helps you break free of the rat race and build a richer, more meaningful life, flourishing incrementally and realistically, improving your mental health and wellness, and living with deeper purpose beyond the mundane, no matter where you are in life's journey.
Can you learn to be present with yourself? Let yourself have a good cry. Reach out to somebody who is kind, can hear you out, and can hold space for what you're feeling. Maybe write in your journal, go take a bath, do something caring, loving, and self-soothing for yourself while you're hurting, rather than just trying to escape and not feel what you're feeling. Can you take better care of yourself and be kind and gentle with yourself while you're going through whatever difficulty it is, rather than running from it, shutting down, or trying to control everything around you? Gives you the illusion that you're doing something, and therefore you don't feel so powerless and out of control. Healthy coping strategies is one aspect. The other 3 are, what are the things you need to learn so that you can have good relationships? Be a person that has empathy and recognizes that the other person you're trying to relate to is their own unique human being, and you can't make them into exactly what you want them to be. And there is a sense of mutual recognition. Can you communicate effectively so that when you ask for what you want or share a complaint, it's done in a way that's more likely to be heard? So there's some skills that you can learn about how to communicate more effectively so other people will listen and be more inspired to work with you on whatever it is you're communicating about. And so there's things like that that help you be better in personal growth, and self-awareness are the other 2 important things related to being a person capable of having good relationships. And then there's mental and emotional capacities. And emotional capacities is about, how do you become emotionally intelligent? How do you get to the place where you can recognize your feelings, tolerate your feelings, work through them, and take constructive action so that they can enrich your life and inform your life rather than overwhelm you and run your life? Or you avoid them completely because they just seem messy and scary. You shut yourself down, and then your life is so much less rich. And the last one is mental capacities, which is, how do you become a person who can be self-aware and have insight and use good judgment and be mindful and notice what's happening and try to things too, like just planning and organizing yourself so that you can kind of function in the world and use your mind for good. Use your mind to help you rather than let your mind, like your emotions, run the show. That's a big problem for all of us. It's a tricky one because our minds talk a lot to say in there that's helpful to listen to.
Yeah, you said so many good things. I think people just have to get the book to break that down more. But all of these things about healthier coping mechanisms, I love how you broke it down. Is it something you're trying to avoid or trying to control? We often think that we're fixing it and improving it, and then we're moving to the other side. I see that with my clients a lot. Like you mentioned, trying to micromanage your kids. A lot of my clients do that. I get stuck in that trap sometimes. But they make us smaller, how you talked about learning from that failure, that growth mindset more of, okay. And teaching that to my kids, that's something that we talk a lot about. There's so many things, but even just feeling your feelings, like that reminds me of, again, my brother died pretty tragically about 3 years ago. And I think I've worked through a lot of that. And then just a couple days ago, his favorite song came on when I was in the car by myself, and I was sobbing for probably 30 minutes. I just kept replaying it, and I was like, what am I doing? But I think there's part of me that just needs to process that next level and just like allowing space for that, letting it be awkward if I come to a stoplight and there's tears coming down my face. But yeah, so many of these things, and it reminds me of the title of your book, Beyond Quick Fixes. Yeah, maybe from this podcast episode, you're not finding the one thing that's going to suddenly make your life peaceful and wonderful. And maybe that's the point. Of course we're not, but we're just trying to create more of this balance and this fulfillment, this authenticity. Can't even break all down the things that you said, but it reminded me of a lot of beautiful things.
I'm so sorry for the loss of your brother, and I think that's beautiful. That it doesn't matter how many years later that you could pause and be present with yourself, that this song evoked a strong memory and a lot of emotion, and you just welcomed it. You didn't fight it. You didn't push it away. You just tolerated the pain of remembering missing him, or whatever feelings it was bringing up for you. But that's such a good example of being emotionally intelligent and healthy and being kind and compassionate, to just allow that to be. It flows through us and it gets to kind of keep moving along when it's ready. It wasn't blocked. It wasn't pushed away. It met with a refusal to feel, because then it just gets stored away somewhere and it shows up in our body or in tension in our neck or in a grumpy mood or feeling depressed later. And so it was really lovely. I'm sorry that it was such a painful thing for you, but thank you for sharing that with us too.
And to be totally transparent, I think before that, I didn't even recognize it, that I was feeling that. The holidays had just happened. I think that was part of it. And I think I was unintentionally stuffing it with sugar, with screens, with being stuck inside. But when it came more fully, then I could see it for what it was. And I think that's why I love stories so much. Like with listeners, if they feel like, oh, I just didn't nail it, I definitely shoved it down. When that next wave comes, giving yourself that grace and awareness to do that. Do you have any examples, Celeste, of times when you have had grief in your own life and how you managed it, how you got through when it was maybe easier just to avoid it with accomplishments or something else?
I do have a very tragic grief story. I'll tell you in a minute, but you reminded me of an expression that I like a lot when you said waves, which is, I think one of the mindfulness teachers says it, is that we can't stop the waves, but we can learn to surf. I like thinking about that with all emotions, but grief in particular. Some days you're out in the ocean and it's really calm, and then all of a sudden this big giant wave comes and knocks you over, and then it's calm again. We can't always predict what's going to evoke a feeling to emerge. And sometimes it's not the most convenient moment, and we might need to suppress it temporarily from the middle of the work meeting. It's not stopping the feelings, not being overtaken by them so they ruin our sleep. How do we get on our wiggy board and hang on tight until that big wave has passed? Ride it out in a loving, caring way as best we can. But yeah, my story of coping and grief is a sad one. My 27-year-old son was away at college, and he had been a really bright, vibrant, loving young man, and he was diagnosed with bipolar 2 disorder, which is a kind of a manic depression. It began a 9-year, very painful journey for him with mental health struggles. He tried everything in his power of therapy and good diet and exercise and all the things you would want. He ended up taking his life about 11 years ago. Shattered me. Losing a child is one of the worst things to endure. It was just so painful that all these things he was trying and all the love that we shared with him and the help he was getting was not enough. It made me question my faith. It made me question our profession. It made me, besides the grief of just losing my child, it was a really rough time for me. This is where I really learned about self-compassion. It's like I could, on my rough days, tolerate being alive. It was hard to live life without him. This was so not the outcome that I wanted or expected. I missed him so much. I have another daughter, Elise, who's 3 years younger, and that really motivated me to learn all I could about grief and how to handle it as constructively as one can. I got my own help and therapy, and I went to a grief group of parents who lost a child. And so I did everything in my power to get support. There's nothing that makes it better. Don't self-destruct. Don't drink a bottle of wine every night. Put yourself to sleep. I tried that a little bit. That was no good. How do you weather the worst of it until you can get back on your feet and adapt to this new reality that I did not want? I did not want life without my son Wiley. I missed him so much. I miss him today. I still miss him every day. It's just very hard. So all these things that I talk about in the book and that I just lightly mentioned here were things that I had to relearn on a whole nother level. And I thought I knew a lot about all these things, but talk about learning to tolerate something painful, learning how to accept life as life, the hand you're dealt. This is what happened. There was no turning it around at this point. I had to learn about acceptance. And despite our best efforts and all the work we put in to have a certain kind of outcome, it doesn't always turn out the way we want. How can I be more accepting of that? How can I take better care of myself? I would say up until that point in my life, I was pretty driven to do well, to accomplish well, to be great at everything I did, to be a good mom, to be a good worker. I had to totally dial all that back. If you just get up every day and brush your teeth and love your child and your husband, and after a while I took 4 months off, go to work and try to be helpful to other people, all bets were off. I expected nothing else of myself. And eventually I was able to be a more fully functioning person back in the world, doing more than just the basics. But I take a nap every day now for 30 minutes because I love it. And during that time of grieving, I started napping. In the past, I would have never let myself nap because you need to be productive. I was so much harder on myself then. Since I couldn't be hard on myself, it would have just been cruel. I learned about self-love, self-kindness, compassion, patience, and tolerating that grief doesn't go away. My friends were so loving and so there for me. But after about a year or two, people start to get kind of uncomfortable. They don't want you to be hurting anymore. I don't blame them. I don't be hurting anymore either. But how do you not hurt when you're living your life without one of the most important people in it? It does hurt. I've learned a lot about not rushing people through their grief, being patient with them. It's going to take what it takes. I'm a better friend to people who are going through loss now because just try to be present with them and acknowledge it. Like a lot of people won't even say anything sometimes because they think, I don't want to bring it up. I'm thinking, you don't need to worry about that. It's on my mind a lot. It was a rough way to learn a lot of things that I thought I already knew, but I really had to practice in a very different way to survive that kind of heartbreak.
I cannot imagine. Sorry for your loss as well, for sharing that story. Very raw, very hard, vulnerable, sad story. And how you talked about a big part of that was acceptance, compassion. I love that you just normalize a little bit, like letting go of that productivity, what it should look like, and focusing instead on the bare essentials and the ups and downs, and giving yourself some time and showing up the way that you wanted for your family. Listeners already know this, but I've lost my brother, but then I lost my dad at a younger age. And you think about all these different ways that you lose people and how complicated and complex that grief is, depending on the stage of development or otherwise. And the one I've always told myself is like, I don't know how I would cope with losing a child, like the doubt, the self-blame, how that affects your marriage, all of those things. I just don't know how I would cope. And so when people share those stories, I think you mentioned resilience, and I'm just like, I can't imagine how much that would increase if you allow it instead of going to escapism. But I just appreciate you speaking to that, because that is incredibly difficult. And I know that I can't even speak to that the way that you can. From that lens, did you write that book after your experience with your son?
Yeah. So when you asked originally what made me want to write the book, that is really what the book is dedicated to, my son Wiley. It just made me realize that this book isn't meant to help someone with the most serious forms of mental illness that can be very hard and debilitating. Thankfully, the outcome for him is it's still too many people die by suicide every year in the United States, about 50,000 people, but it's not common. People should know that there's a lot of hope if you take care of your mental health. It's important. The message and impetus of the book is I wanted to give people something that the average person for $20 could buy and be really well informed about the basic building block that I need to have in place that will help me strengthen this foundation from which I live my life. Having better mental health doesn't mean you're never going to have a mental health problem. 25% of people at all times are struggling with a mental health problem. Half of us, by the time we're 75, will have a mental health disorder at some point. So it's not an uncommon thing to struggle. So no one should feel bad if you are struggling with some kind of mental health problem. The message of the book is be informed. Be informed and know that this matters. Your mental health affects how you feel every single day. There are things that you can do to strengthen yourself, to help you be more emotionally intelligent, to have a healthier sense of self, to have better coping mechanisms, to use your mind for good whenever you can, to be more resilient. All those things are really important because life is hard. Let your mental health go to hell. The consequences can be really severe. The quality of your life suffers. In the worst case, it can cost you your life. I had to live that with my son about a worst case situation. So I wanted to offer something to people that they could feel more educated, they could feel more empowered. A lot of us have a sense, like me in college, it's like something is wrong. I don't feel good. I'm doing some crazy things. I'm kind of a smart person. I know that it's not a good idea to be eating a dozen donuts. I didn't understand why, and I didn't really know what I needed to do instead. What would help me? How could I develop myself into a kind of person who could be wiser, who could be more effective in the way I related with people, who could deal with my emotions better. So this is meant to be something widely accessible and helpful to help you understand yourself better, know what you need to work on, and support you on your journey. The last chapter is about all the different ways, including therapy, coaching, and spiritual counseling or guidance if that's what works better for you. There's a lot of different ways you can help yourself. But the point is, you matter. Your mental health matters. So make it a priority to take care of it. We're lucky that in this day and age, it used to be that physical health got all the attention. It was good to hire a personal trainer and get your physical checkup every year. Well, guess what? Your mental health matters just as much, at least just as much.
Yeah, and definitely not a quick fix. I'm so grateful the stigma is changing, but even still, I just went to my daughter's appointment the other day and they wanted her family history, and you have to check the box of mental illness for all your family members. It feels like you're sort of pariah if you mark that box, but statistically, most of us have had something. I know I had postpartum depression, and looking back, I can see several times, like in high school, even college, of just depression and not really knowing what was going on. At that point, I hadn't process my dad's death. There's different parts in your life where it pops up. Those layers just want to be addressed more. Right time is right for you to dive into it, but it's hard to come to terms with that. Even a lot of listeners are parents, and they talk about how challenging that can be to lose your sense of self, and maybe you have been for decades with your children, and not even really, like you spoke to this earlier, of that balance between self-care, or is it like being selfish? And are you giving too much to your own endeavors and accomplishments, or too little? We're always trying to course correct in this way that it's just hard to navigate it on your own. So I'm so grateful you have this resource out there, this book, Beyond Quick Fixes, that listeners can go check out and listen to on other ways that we can do that if we're feeling stuck, because we all know we get a little stuck sometimes.
Yeah, and the book's not out till September, but hopefully I'll remind you. I'll send you a little reminder when it comes time.
And we'll publish this closer to your due date. You hear it say
they're very fitting. It feels like birthing a child. It's like I'm working on this for a while. But yeah, you really bring up a good point about, we maybe need to wrap up, but a lot of depression does stem from unwarranted losses. We're not a good country at being comfortable with grief. We kind of push it aside. And it finds its ways to get our attention. And sometimes it's through just this sadness, depressive feeling. And it's like because the sense of loss didn't get to be talked about enough or with enough time and sensitivity.
And I have to say, not even just somebody dying. Like, I am thinking of one of my best friends. She would often talk about the loss of her marriage not going the way she anticipated. And after a while, some of our friends are like, oh, this again. She did have a similar response to that. And I just remember feeling sad for her because it's just the ups and downs. There's something to not getting too stuck in it, but also patience with that journey of, yeah, there's going to be times when I just need to process a little bit more and other times when I'm doing okay.
That's a tricky one. That's where you need both a lot of compassion for yourself, that you're still grieving the loss of the dream you had, and you don't let that sadness keep you from doing what you can to live your life now.
Yeah.
Because that can be a little bit of a danger if we get so consumed and overtaken by our greed.
Especially if we're going into that victim mindset and not moving forward. I don't think it was in this case, but yes, it's always good to be honest with ourselves and have a mentor or therapist that can help us navigate that when it's a challenge. Thank you so much for everything that you shared with us today. I know your book comes out in September, but do you mind telling us where we can find it, where we can find you when that's ready to come out?
You can find me I have a website, celestebirkhofer.com. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. On my website, you can sign up to get an email announcement when the book is ready to be released if you'd like that. I think I'm going to start to put out a newsletter once a month that's just some valuable information for the month about ways you can take better care of yourself in a mental health regard. So if you'd be interested in that, you can sign up by adding your email to my website.
Okay, and we'll definitely put all of that in the show notes. Just a quick closing question for you. Maybe even just this last month, how do you feel like you've deepened your own personal fulfillment? Any quick thing, recent thing that you've done to hone that a little bit more or honor that?
Yeah, I would say there's 2 books I read not too long ago, and I revisited them. One was The Book of Joy by the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu, and another was Positivity by Barbara Fredrickson. It's about paying more attention to these kind of feelings: gratitude, hope, satisfaction, peace, love, joy, interest, and inspiration. It's like human beings have a strong negativity bias. Our mind is programmed to be on the lookout for what has gone wrong or what could go wrong. And it takes a lot of conscious effort to not have that be setting the tone for your life, that you're always on the lookout for bad things. So you counter it by looking for goodness. Now inspired and committed to noticing more, paying more attention to small, little beautiful things. And losing Wiley, I was so sad for so long that I really felt like I have to try harder to see what's good in the world again, because I don't want to just be this sad person for the rest of my life. So I'm having a renewal of that desire to keep an eye out for what is good and lovely, because there's a lot of suffering happening for people in the world and individually, and you want to have compassion for that and keep your eyes on, don't miss the good stuff.
Absolutely. It reminds me too of, this is kind of embarrassing, but kind of funny. Just that, because I've been experiencing some seasonal affective disorder with all the greatness for so long. And I really do my best to manage all the things. I've got the tools I pull out. But even still, I feel almost like I have mono in January and February. So just like trying to have that self-compassion. But also I notice that people ask me about things and I'll share the negative potentially. And I'm kind of getting stuck in that rut. So I want to look for the goodness like you talked about. And so my husband asked us all at dinner last night, family dinner, what's something great that happened today? And I was thinking, oh, nothing. But then I was like, actually, I took my daughter to this appointment and her new doctor's name is Dr. Vet. And everybody was laughing a lot. And then that was like the joyful moment of like, oh, we're just like connecting and laughing. Like that's one of my favorite things to do with my family. So yeah, that was my moment. Even if it was a small thing, I was like,
good for you. You found this little laughter to add into a day. It was kind of hard.
I'm grateful that you pointed that out. That's something small that we can all do. And again, I just loved having you on the show. It was so nice to hear your stories and to relate with these things that we all do to varying levels. And we often feel alone. I think that can be one of the hardest parts. And so that you can speak to this and we can feel maybe we're not alone and maybe there's things we can do to build resilience and move forward with fulfillment even when we don't think we can. I appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
This was an incredible discussion today on developing real fulfillment from the inside out. If this conversation inspired you, head to fulfillmenttherapy.org to learn about individual coaching, internship opportunities, or sign up for our free weekly emails with practical steps to nurture balance and joy more in your life. You can also follow our latest updates on Instagram and Facebook. Thanks for listening today. And as always, thanks for sharing this with your friends and family, sending them the episode, or all that you do to help others around you. We very much appreciate it. We'll see you back here next Monday with a new episode. Hey friends, if you enjoyed this episode, a quick 30-second share can help someone else find support and help this podcast grow. Leaving a review on Apple Podcasts boosts visibility and keeps the show alive. Your simple acts make a big difference. I'll see you back here each week for more life-changing episodes.